I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to the online Dharma Hall. For those coming in for the Sunday session, you're very warmly welcomed to make yourself at home and settle into this session we have together. So my name's Nathan Glyde, one of the Gaia House teachers, and really happy to be here with you and sharing this space and sharing our practice, sharing this exploration of the Dharma. As someone was just sharing, yesterday we had the lovely fundraising session with Martine and Stephen Batchelor. I hope that those of you who were able to make that enjoyed it. I think it's probably also available after the event. I think they maybe are going to make that available for those who missed it as well. And a lovely way to express our support for Gaia House and all that it's offering in its various ways. But we have this session together, have about an hour and a half together for some practice and for sharing. I'd like us soon we'll flow into a meditation, and then there'll be a Dharma reflection and time from there. Any kind of questions, what's alive, maybe from what we offer today in the session or for whatever else is happening in your practice, have kind of a questions, responses, sharings, reflections from your side as well there. And all of that may take around about an hour and 15 minutes or so. And if we kind of keep to that, then I'd like to offer the last 15 minutes that we can have in smaller breakout rooms. Meeting in twos and threes, sharing a little bit about our practice in more intimate field. Not that you have to share intimate things, but it's a more smaller, easier gathering where we can speak a little bit more about our practice. So that's a lovely part of this as well. Feel free to say hello in the chat, and if you want to mention where you are, how it is where you are. I'm in Israel, just spent the weekend, as we call it. Like in Israel, this is the first day of the working week, so people are going back to work. So it's kind of a different vibe in different places. The emptiness of time and place really affects things. So we've had the weekend, and I spent the weekend in Palestine, which was really interesting and fruitful. Really warmly welcoming, and wherever you are, however you are, I hope you feel welcome to be here, and it's really lovely to be here with you. So feel free to use the chat to say hello, and just feel that inclusivity as we hear from, there's people in Finland, there's people in different parts of the UK, from Africa, from other places in Europe, and extending over this way into the Middle East and all of that. So really broad sense of community here, and maybe we can kind of notice what that does for us as we open to the sense of community and that feeling of the Sangha that builds and is actually here in our hearts and minds. It's quite an interesting shift for me as I tune into that. Maybe it is for you as well. So as we come from diverse places, there may also be kind of diverse intentions that we come to a session like this for. But there may also be, some harmony there and some shared appearances of our intentionality. And just ask you if you'd be willing to, maybe we can put into the chat, what is it you're bringing here today? What's the intention behind your practice at this time? What are you trying to develop more of? What do you sense the world needs, or you need, or your close connections need right now? And maybe we can just also name those in the chat. What do you wish to bring here, or what do you imagine or feel the need for more? And I'll just read out a few, and we can resonate with them. Maybe we already just harmonize with that sense of connection, of presence, what I like to do is I say the words, I try and remember, what does it feel like? What does that mean to me? The connection, I feel that, being connected. Connected to myself, connected to others, that feeling of presence, really coming, maybe it's into the body or into the moment, whatever else there. Or patience. Can I be patient in this moment? Not just like, oh, patience eventually, but like, oh, what would it look like? Shape does it take? Awareness of death. Clarity. Kindness. I mean, each of them, they have like a different tone, don't they? Shape something, fill out something. Stillness. Learning. Peace. Welcoming. These are all really beautiful, beautiful qualities. Sometimes I feel it's maybe we could one time maybe we can just do a session where we just kind of sit with intentions. I don't know if that's similar to what happens in certain other settings, maybe the Quaker communities, and they just someone can stand up and say a few words any time, and we just sit in the presence of that. Less self-concern, less self-obsession. Yeah. So maybe we can kind of gather together any of those intentions and resonances with what's significant for us, what feels like it's, I want to resonate in that intentionality. And you can read them, then naming them, feeling them touch us, maybe closing the eyes, coming into the practice session. We'll take half an hour for practice, and I'm interested in something that's been of concern for me in practice, kind of an exploration of something that might initially seem a little detached, whatever, but it's the core teaching of like things that we cling onto, things that we grasp onto, things that we get attached to, is a sense of our view of things. And some of it's influenced a little bit by my time I've spent, in Israel, Palestine, different views here, their aspect in the conflict and how we can transcend those views, how we can shift those views, but also, really just coming back to the sense of what's my view of the Dharma, what's my view of liberation, what's my view of dukkha, what am I doing in relationship to these teachings and practices, and in relationship to view. And so I just want to see what's it like when we bring in this lovely expression of view from Shunryu Suzuki, from this Zen mind, beginner's mind. And he speaks about the beginner's mind. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. Yet in the expert's view, in the expert's mind, there are very few possibilities. Very few possibilities. Fixed views. This is what it is. Can we have a bit of beginner's mind as we move into this practice session? So we'll have half an hour of practice, mostly in silence. So let's see, what would it take to embody a beginner's mind? Maybe you just want to be very simple posture, that Zen modality. We just sitting. What is this? Knowing the body. What is this body? And it's not a question maybe to answer, but a question that brings us closer. How do we know it? How do we feel it? the body's not the right place right now, of course, there's always sounds. And what are they? Let's just take a few moments just to become familiar with. In Tibetan they use a word gom for meditation, becoming familiar with. Becoming familiar with a mind that gets distracted and a mind that can be brought back. Getting familiar with the body, with the sounds, with the breath. Choosing one and guiding the mind back into the present moment. So to be a beginner, to have a beginner's mind, needs also the willingness to begin again. So if the mind wanders away, are we willing to let go of that? Not be attached to finishing that thought even in this moment. Begin again. So you don't know mind. What is this? Maybe a beginner's mind is supported by doing a practice we're not so familiar with. So if we know the breath really well, maybe meditating on sounds might support that. But also the beginning again, we can adopt a view. This breath is the first one I've ever paid attention to. Never seen, felt, sensed a breath before. Or in the sounds, never knew this sound. What is this? the mind is still wandering or going in patterns of habitual behavior, that willingness to be a beginner, the humility, the willingness to begin again, so helpful. And if the heart-mind is starting to settle, to pay attention to experience, or if it just feels helpful, useful, can we drop in beneath the label of things, beneath this sound being a car, a bird, something defined, this breath being something defined, and come down to the level of vibration, sensations, a more direct knowing within this don't know. What is this? Giving space, letting sensitivity in, finding your way like a beginner. How do we do this? as we ease into the last minute of this practice. That spirit of beginning again. Also include opening, if we're in the breath, body, the whole body. If we're in the sounds, to the whole vast space of sound, without any preference for one thing or another. Not preference for pleasure over pain, nice over not nice. Open and close to all things. And now, in your own way, in your own time, beginning to gently transition from this stillness meditation, bringing what's of value with you as we open the eyes, move the body. Of course, at any time we can be beginners again, slip under the threshold of the labels of things and explore our experience in different ways. And we can even let go of any sense of doing things right or wrong. You know, in the beginner's mind, there isn't all of these valuations necessarily. And so this meditation is more or less just kind of exploring what it's like to adopt different views of our experience and seeing how they can be helpful. I'm not saying, this is the way to be. I don't even know if Shunryu Suzuki is saying this is the way, to be all the time. But it's an option for us that we can, adopt this beginner's mind. Hopefully it's something that is useful for us some of the time. So I want to share a little bit of reflections on this teaching and where it fits together. But just before we jump into that, I just want to express my gratitude to you, to being here, to supporting these sessions. It's so lovely that we still get a good amount of people to at least some of the online Dharma Hall sessions, maybe all of them, enough that it can keep sustaining our practice and be somewhere that we can drop into. And of course also a lot of appreciation for all those who come here and share the teachings and practicings with us over the many months that this has been offered, and really happy that it continues to be available. And of course also a lot of appreciation to Gaia House for making this available and making it available freely, so that it can be freely offered to all. And we're particularly wanting it to be a support for everyone. And if this is a hard time for you and life is challenging in any way, really feel welcomed to take refuge, to find peace, to have connection, to practice together. It's really significant and important that it's offered in that way. So as you know, with things which are freely offered, we're also free to find our way to respond to that. And that means there's the possibility that this is run on dana, on generosity. It's generously offered out to us, and so the invitation is there if you're in a position where you can respond with whatever form of generosity that is. That can be the generosity of just coming, showing up, being a support, being a presence here that supports any other person's presence here. Yeah. And that can be through sharing it with others, taking what we learn here and offering it on to others, or expressing it through the way that we live, so that our practice comes into all aspects of our life. It's another beautiful expression of dana. And also there's the dana of participation in financial support to Gaia House, to those who come and offer the teachings here. And if that's something that's possible for you, of course it makes a big difference to those of us who come here and all of the staff and Gaia House itself. So where you came from to get to here, there's links there to offer that kind of support as well. But not to forget, the other ways, the other expressions that generosity can come through us. So what I was thinking about today was actually speaking a little bit of something that I think the Buddha was kind of really teaching from the outset, the importance of not clinging to views, not being attached to our perspectives on things, our view of what is true, or even to the practices that are right or wrong, and many other things. And we can kind of see that there's many ways that this is expressed in the teachings. One of which is called Ditthuppadana. So uppadana is to cling, to grasp, to be attached, literally from the word to fuel. Fuels dukkha. It's like the fuel that you put in the tank that runs the vehicle of dukkha, or that drives us to Dukkhaville. And then, so dit is to view, so it's attachments to views. Ditthuppadana. There's also in the Eightfold Path, the first limb of the Eightfold Path walking being is samaditi. To have a well-balanced view, to have a middle-weighed view, sometimes called right view, which I think of it more like when a ship comes right, gets righted, kind of leaning off to a side, and it's righted, as opposed to the right and wrong kind of connotation of right. Well, certainly not right and left. I don't think it's got anything to do with that. So there's many ways that our language appears, and it's like, how do we hold that? What views are helpful? So in Samaditi, the understandings, the wisdom views, the Four Noble Truths, which is this beautiful expression of how things dependently originate. The Four Noble Truths that also express that dukkha has an ending, it has a fading, it has a cessation. Things that, how do we hold those views? Do we think it has an ending? Do we think it just has a temporary reprise? Or how do we hold that? What's useful? What's right about that for us? What's uprighting for us? The three characteristics of existence, that sabbe sankhara, all the conditioned things are anicca. All the conditioned things are dukkha. If you grasp at them, if you hold at them, psychological dukkha, this also the dukkha of pain and distress in our existence. How we relate to that. The understanding that all things are not themselves from their own side. The way the mind relates to things, the way the mind conceives of things, the way experience comes into being. So we kind of have Ditthuppadana on one side, the clinging to the views, and Samaditi on the other side, kind of like a liberated way of relating to views. And so the opposite is non-attachment to views. It's not the non-having of views, right? Maybe there's something that kind of transcends here. Um, but also, as we were doing in the meditation now, saying, I don't know what this is. That's not necessarily a non-attachment to view. It's adopting a view that can kind of help us to let go of some of the fixed things we have. Kind of an example of using this in a practice I remember at one point, which was kind of, I was, sitting behind someone that I know, it's like saying to myself, this is not, this person's name. This is not them. You kind of sink below something else. Something you can do, with a father, daughter, where you have, the name holds a lot of significance. This is not my father. Oh, hang on, what does that mean? This is not my daughter. What does that mean? If they're not this, who are they? What actually happens in that space? You can kind of see for yourself in your relationships when you work that way. Maybe something more alive happens, something more beautiful happens, the more possibilities. Of course, they're not only this person. They're not even only this person in relationship to me. But they're not this person from their own side. That's not how they view themselves. And we can use that kind of mode to kind of just open up things. In a sense, it can be helpful as a practice to get comfortable in that mode of being, less fixed about that view, redressing the balance of kind of overconfidence or arrogance and just thinking we're right, just, of course I'm right. If I wasn't right, I would change my mind to something else, and then I would be right again. It's like the naive realism, this kind of principle, maybe talk about it a little bit later on, is that we always have a sense that what I'm doing is the right way. My way of practicing the Dharma, my way of living a life, my way of doing, whatever it is, the work, the parenting, the tasks that I do. But it's something interesting here. It's neither extreme, neither I know and neither I don't know. So what does non-attachment to view look like? And just to say, the non-attachment to view is only one form of the fueling, the clinging, the attachments that we can be engaged in. So the Buddha says, bhikkhus, we can say, fellow practitioners, both formerly and now, what I teach is dukkha and the cessation of dukkha. Okay, so it's the whole thing here. What does dukkha mean? What does dukkha mean? So let's say suffering, distress, stressfulness, whatever. That's what I teach. Dukkha and the cessation of suffering. If others abuse, revile, scold and harass the Tathagata, which is what he would refer to himself as, for that, the Tathagata on that account feels no annoyance, bitterness or dejection of the heart. And if others honour, respect, revere and venerate the Tathagata for that, the Tathagata on that account feels no delight, joy or elation of the heart. There is not an attachment to what the Buddha is teaching. I teach this. I teach suffering, the cessation of suffering. I teach dukkha, the cessation of dukkha. And if people want to praise me or they want to put me down, I'm not attached to that. So it's this kind of equanimity of the view, not an absence of a view. And part of this is kind of a useful long-term view. It's like, what are we doing here? How do we hold the teachings, the practices, the things here, right? Neither too tightly nor too loosely. So there's a few key kind of metaphors in the practice which I think are kind of beautiful to help with us. There's the raft metaphor. You know this one, that where we use the teachings like a raft to cross from this shore to the other shore, to cross from danger to freedom from danger. Perhaps it's kind of the ethical conditions of practice, and it's the practical application, it's the clarity of heart and mind. Now, they then say, when you get to the other side, or whatever it is, like once you've crossed across, don't carry the raft on your head. That you use it to cross, you use it for the purpose that it's useful for. Of course, if we reach the far shore, which would be to have profound wisdom and understanding, it would be very unlikely, if you had profound wisdom and understanding, that then you would put a raft on the top of your head. But there's something useful here, perhaps about, how we can develop, and then we return. We kind of return back to the so-called dangerous shore that we live in here, with the greed, hatred, delusion, misunderstandings, conflicts, all of that. Then do we start putting this raft of teachings on the top of our head with a sense of identification, with a fixed view, a not fully cooked understanding, as the wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, compassion, presence of heart and mind start to come through. But also, we don't set it aside completely. There's some way of relating to us. There's also, places in the Dharma where the Buddha talks about the thicket of views and opinions. The thicket, this really thick hedge that's also spiky and harsh. You get prickled from all of this, and the entanglement in the views, the self and other, those who don't agree with me, those who don't really get it. Get entangled in our views. I think something that we all know, and that's both true within, Dharma, freedom teachings, that the teachings themselves, when they're grasped incorrectly, they can become a real problem for us. But there's all kinds of views in our life that we can hold an opinion about. How do we relate to others who hold different views? I think for me it's a really big question. It's a really big question, something I'm challenged by a lot. It's like, how do I hold the space when someone disagrees with me? How do I hold the space when we have this example like the Buddha gave, that people put my view down, whatever. Not to take it personally. So let's say that we're developing here a view about how to hold our views. And now we've got this other view, so we've kind of just created a view about how to hold views. You hold views in the right way. And so we don't cling to the view of right view. Right? That would just be another entanglement, another problematicness. So how do we hold it? How do we hold the view that's going to support expanding around views? We hold it lightly and firmly. It's kind of the third metaphor that comes into the teachings. How to catch a snake, how to catch a water snake. You do it badly, you'll get bitten. If you grab onto things, do them tightly. If you do it well, then you can help this snake get to a safer place, or whatever it is. Why are you catching snakes? It's like, hopefully it's to free them, and get them to somewhere that's safer, get them away from somewhere where they're going to do harm or cause harm. There's actually a beautiful teaching in a discourse, in an essay written by Thanissaro Bhikkhu, where I think he's describing his teacher Ajahn Lee, and he's practicing metta, and there's a snake in his room, and his metta to the snake eventually says, dear snake, I think we might accidentally hurt each other, and I only have this hut to live in, and maybe you could find somewhere else that you could be. And it's kind of a very sweet kind of description. It's grabbing it correctly. It's not that this is mine and that's yours and we have to live together regardless. It's like, maybe we can't live together right now. But let's let go of the snakes for now, as we probably should let go of snakes in general. Only hold a snake for a short period of time, for as long as it's nice for the snake. The Dharma is something to grasp, as in comprehend. We want to get an understanding of this, but not grasp that, not to make it fixed or take it as I, me and mine, which is actually part of the fourth type of clinging. Clinging to views is actually the second type of clinging. Making this mine. I'm defining myself around my teachings and practices that I get. Also, not making it fixed. This is something that's meant to transcend, that's meant to grow, that's meant to bring us forth. Yeah? If we conceive of it in a certain way, it makes it fixed. Yeah? The Dharma is here to make us free, to help us become more free. Right? So any which ways that we kind of grasp it, fix an identity, I'm better than someone else because I get it more, I'm better than someone else because my practice is deeper. That would be the opposite, right? Arguing's not peaceful, it's not harmonizing, it's not the way, and it didn't appear in anyone's intentions for this session. Yeah? All of those intentions really speak to something, less concern for myself, more space, more forgiveness, more kindness. Yeah? I think it's really quite interesting in terms of Buddhism as a principle that it has within it, don't get attached to the view. Don't get attached to the view. I don't know if it's that common. I don't want to make kind of a view about other religions, but some of them really have a strong sense of being right in this religion. We are the right ones. We get it. But right there in the core, I think the Buddha was very wise to kind of put that in there. Yeah? Don't be attached to views. Maybe it's a Indian kind of thing. Maybe it's not unique to that. But it's important that it's there because it's something that comes from our minds. This naive realism that's kind of understood in psychological traditions. George Carlin, the American comedian, had a really good way of describing it, that when you're driving along the road, say you've got at least like a 3-lane highway system, and you're driving at your speed, which is of course the right speed to be driving, and then you pass someone who's driving more slowly, or you get stuck behind someone who's driving more slowly, and of course there's a natural thought, why are they driving so slowly when they could be going the right speed as me, and then we would all get there on time? And then someone overtakes you and you think, what a lunatic, who would drive that fast on this kind of a road? And then later on we're driving at a different speed, but it's still the right speed. Whatever speed it is that we're going, of course it's the right speed. Why would I drive? This is the safest and the most efficient, and it doesn't hold up other people. So it's a core feature of the human person. Right? If you didn't think you were right, you would be wrong, and you would not want to be wrong, so you would change that, and then again you're right. So there's a certain kind of appropriateness to our sense of things as well, right? Of appropriateness to our senses. I understand the Dharma as well as I can understand it in this moment. But don't get attached, don't get fixed, don't let the thing that you think is fixed. Right? There's always a different speed to drive, there's always different ways to be. Maybe driving slower, you notice more. You could notice more, right? Whatever it is, different ways of being. Not to judge self and other. Yeah, it's also really kind of clearly in there, in the way that we use these views. So I think it's beautiful that it's kind of a seed in that kind of opens out these practices. Yeah. In a sense, is there a willingness in us to give up an old view when we hear, better evidence for holding a different view? Yeah. In the teachings in our life, are we able to take in new information? Maybe another, psychological trick you know about is all these biases that we have. Confirmation bias. Like someone can say 10 things, but if there's one thing there that I agree with, I actually only hear that, and the other stuff didn't matter. But you see, I was validated. I took that. We can draw that out in situations, and that can reinforce a sense of, oh yes, I do get it. But do we also move into circles where we're challenged, where we hear the other side and allow ourselves to have a conversation? I think I heard, Thich Nhat Hanh talking about, a real conversation is not something you enter with the intention to convince another, but you enter willing to be convinced. Yeah, dangerous territory maybe, worth writing down beforehand. This is what I think. And now I'm going to listen to someone else and see it's evolving, it's changing. And we spoke about the 3 characteristic views, sabbe, sankhara, anicca. And we can think of it as a universal truth. That is what we have to rely on. That is, now I'm seeing things as they really are. and realize it's a way of seeing. Yeah? And we can look, when I see that things are anicca, something changes. Yeah? There's a certain way that our view of things shapes the view of what appears. Yeah? So it's like our view, our regard, our relationship to this view, sabbe sankhara anicca, everything is inconstant, everything is impermanent. And they're actually two different views in a sense. Affects how these things appear, the appearance of what's really here. Yeah? And it shapes the view of what appears now. So there's all these views going on. Like we have a view about views, and that shapes what appears, what we view, what we see, what we sense, how life is. Now we can bring in this view, it's all anicca. It's all anicca, it's all changing, it's all inconstant, nothing can last. Does that change anything for you? Maybe it changes because, now we let go because it's anicca. We let go because it's anicca. And when we let go, if you pay close attention, you'll notice that it actually becomes more anicca. Right? One view or the other was actually sustaining it in the heart and mind more. Yeah? This is permanent, and if I get it, and we just drop that in. This is anicca. It changes. So there's kind of another way that we can see is that it depends on the view. It depends on the view. It's anicca also means it's changeable. It can disappear. Yeah. And so maybe that view starts to deepen, and this whole anicca thread, which seemed like a universal truth, is actually more a principle of a dance of how the view shapes the experience. How we hold the view also shapes how we express it, and how that view then shapes our experience. So there's kind of a creativity invited in different ways of holding a view. So let's say, for example, I'm experiencing some pain in my body, and I say to myself, this is anicca. This is anicca. I just need to bear it for a short while and it will go away. Yeah? That would be one view of anicca. Another view would be to say, this is anicca because of the way that I'm viewing it. It feels permanent, but I can soften that view. And in that softening of that view, in that very moment, its temporaneousness, its inconstancy, it starts to change. There's a loosening and opening, and in that moment, the relevance of it being anicca becomes perfectly clear. It's already moving through. It's already gone in a certain way. Yeah? So different ways of holding the view change the way experience unfolds. So the view of the view shapes the view. Yeah? The way we regard this principle also shapes what appears. Really interesting to see. But if we get fixated in a certain way of holding one of any aspect of the teachings, yeah, it concretizes things. Okay? Something to kind of explore in your own experience, right? But any so-called truth can be turned around and seen and allowed to deepen, expand, endlessly deepening subtlety, but also maybe there's other areas of my existence this can be applied. Yeah? Are we willing, to let the Dharma be alive? Are we willing to not be attached to views, even beautiful, helpful views? Yeah. How attached we can even be to the Dharma. Yeah, it's really beautiful for me that in the religion of Buddhism is this kind of escape hatch of questioning how attached to the religion are we? How attached to its central figures, its story, its practices, its truths, its opinions. Yeah? Even the Sangha we can become. And without attachment, it's not rejection, isn't the alternative, but non-attachment. Yeah? As we said, it's not like, oh, I have views or I have no views, that those are my two binary choices, but there's somewhere, a middle way suggests a spectrum between things. And sometimes, we can take things from the Zen tradition that are really kind of helpful and radical in the way that they just shake things up. But then we can kind of see them within different contexts. So it's don't know mind. Don't know mind. It's something as a tool to kind of help us get out of fixed ideas. Samaditi, this wholesome, helpful way of relating to the views, the teachings, the truths, these central figures within the religion. We hold them wisely, hold them firmly, hold them lightly, hold them in a way that's helpful, supportive for all of us. So that's what I wanted to share today. I'm really happy to hear anything from you that feels helpful, relevant to bring into the space. But yeah, give the space over to you. Really happy to hear if there's anything alive in this for you and anything you'd like to share. Hi, yes please. Yep, do you want to say something? Yeah, it's very, very beautiful, and illness for the body, sickness for the body takes kind of many forms. Some more serious than others, and I really hope and wish you well with healing the body and looking after yourself. When we shift from one view to another view, it's also really helpful to do it in the most supportive way. Yeah, so there can be this kind of feeling is I had a view, and now I'm going to change to another view, and that means that previously my view was stupid, or it was ill-informed, or I was an idiot, and and it's kind of like, well, that's another view. That's another view that evolution means what we did in the past was ridiculous and should be It felt right at that time, and just to kind of understand, okay, so that was something that I explored and I experimented from, and in the seed of that exploration is the wisdom that comes through now. Yeah, it's a necessary quality, for growing. Yeah, no rejection, I suppose, is kind of the message. Yeah, it's not going to be so helpful. And because we might well find ourselves back there very shortly, yeah, and that can be kind of feeling painful. But like, no, this is transition. Something's not fixed, but there's a beauty there. Hi. Yeah, I think it's a very precious point that you bring in, which is if we pit ourselves against others because of what party they're from, or what view that they have of the world, and yet don't actually meet them on a human level, or whatever it is, intelligent life level, preconceived ideas. They're very good for making quick and immediate decisions, and survival and all the rest, but they don't deeply serve us, certainly. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that in. Yes, can hear you. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Really, really beautiful sharing, and I definitely I can't tell you what you should do or what anyone should do, and I don't have any intention to, and thankfully I also don't have any role to. But certainly, there's an interesting point here, which is, as was kind of brought up with like, this kind of looking at how I hold the views in the Dharma also works across into the political, and maybe it can work across into, our situation with coronavirus and other things. Sometimes it works and it transfers across really well, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's times to kind of say, I'm actually going to really hold a view and hold this place and back it up, and I'm going to stand behind it, and this is the right thing at this time. And another time is to say, I really don't know, and I'm not going to kind of pretend to know, and I'm not going to try and hold this space. And it's like different places will need different responses. And there'll be some places in our life where we can have the view, this meditation practice kind of way, being kind to myself is really effective. Now I'm just going to be kind to everyone, and then I get, trampled on or whatever. It's like, it doesn't transfer across. Like, this view was really good in this circumstance, and this view is really not so good elsewhere. So just to kind of knowing that's good to have in terms of non-attachment to views, right? It's not like doing this here, now it works everywhere. So that's, kind of like one section in there. But I would say when it comes to this particular situation, should I be vaccinated, not vaccinated? Is the government overstepping the kind of contract between individuals and not? Is there something to stand up for? Is this a good thing, not a good thing? It becomes very complicated, and exactly as you were saying, it's like, who do I trust for the information of fact here? What do I trust in terms of like what I feel is dignified, supporting like an open way of living, that's supporting a sense of community, togetherness, and all of that. We're going to find our own location there. But I would say, as you gave a good example, with Brexit or coronavirus or left-right politics in any place, Republican, Democrats in America, and peace activists and people who are okay with there being an occupation over here in Israel, it's like they're not okay, or they just like, I don't know what to do about it. It's like that can cause a lot of difficulty when we need to work together. So it comes this interesting point. It's like, how do I hold that view? And how does that view shape my sense of identity and my sense of difference between us? Because if anything, probably what we're being invited to see is there a way of being different and together? It's kind of like, this is the challenge of our times. It's like, we don't have to be the same to be together. And we don't have to agree to work together. Yeah? Is there ways that can happen? And that we can stand up and say, hey, look, I feel excluded by you when you hold more strongly to your view. And I don't want to exclude you. I want to create space where we can both be here together. And if we can't both be here together, then what are we going to do, right? Because I don't want to convince you, and I don't want you to convince me. I want us to be together with different views. Can we enter that space together? And I suppose that's, kind of more or less what I think there. Yeah, no, I think that's a really important question for all of us, yeah? Is our meditation practice something that happens, let's say, like on the meditation seat, yeah? Or is our meditation practice something that expands beyond those boundaries, yeah? There's no like, bell rings, okay, practice is over. There's more a sense of bell rings, okay, practice is now dynamic. How am I holding my views? How am I holding my attachment to myself? My self-concern. How am I practicing my intentionality as I move through the day? Yeah. So we kind of started off this session naming really, really beautiful intentions, and everyone who kind of named an intention or felt an intention, it probably wasn't, for this hour and a half or whatever that we have here together. It's like I'm practicing presence and patience. And that's okay. I've done that now. now I'm going to practice absence and frustration for the rest of the day. Is that, well, of course not. It's for all of the time, and I think that's the really important question, is that what do I think the world needs, and can I practice it here on the cushion? And what do I think I need, and can I practice that out in the world as well? And then kind of reviewing, how did it go? Was that the right way? Was that helpful? And at times, when wasn't it? Make sure that we use our practice to nourish ourselves, so that we're able to kind of move through the world. And in this time where there is a sense of difference, can we cultivate that sense of something deeper together, so that we can have meaningful conversations and move through life together? Because it's not good if we end up in little pockets of views and opinions, and we have enemies and opposers. Doesn't feel like it's a good use of the practice. Is there anything anyone wants to add to the space? Just a few minutes left here. Yes, please. Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful point, and really lovely the way you express it. And wish you well with future parenting and actually that very wise sense of and it's actually something helpful to kind of bring forward, which is that we are often blind to our own view. And as you say, also there's kind of a posturing of certainty for some of us some of the time, when actually, we're actually holding a view. We're just holding a view, and we don't remember where we picked it up from. Yeah, and it's that whole investigation of the view becomes this unfolding thing. It reminded me of an Alan Watts quote, which he says, Alan Watts, spiritual teacher from the 70s, I think grew up in the UK, did a lot of teaching in America. You can check out his stuff. He's got a lovely voice. But he would say at a certain point, I don't want you to agree with me, because in your disagreement you help me to see what I believe. Yeah, and it helps me to kind of establish and form that. But there could be another way of framing that, which is to say, if we hang around with people who are disagreeable, it helps us to see the view that we have appears in relationship to the other. And the more that the other is unlike us, the more we think, I don't see it this way. And we actually get to see, there's a certain way that I see it, and I thought I was open-minded. But open-mindedness actually contains certain conceptual attachments that we only get to see in those kind of moments of disagreement. So it can be an interesting way of actually viewing conversations in challenging times. It's like, this is a great learning experience where I'm going to find out, a little bit more subtleties of what I believe, what I'm attached to in terms of those views, and what actually, as we said before, what actually matters to me, and I am going to stay connected to that view. Yeah, because it's not that the Buddha was saying have no views. I think that's a skillfulness to understand that teaching. There are certain things it's very helpful to think is true or real or relevant or important, for example, our ethical behavior. And yet there's also one of the clinging attachments to let go of is actually, has sila in the name, has morality.